Hi, my name's Andy, and in today's video, we're going to replace the front shocks on my 1966 Mustang. So let's get started. So here's the shocks that we're going to put in the car. These are just standard KYB shocks, and there's the part number. Anybody that needs that. And they're not anything fancy. They're not adjustable, damper, or rebound or anything like that. They're just generic stock replacements, which is great for what I'm trying to do. There's only 2 bolts that hold these in, 2 at the top and 2 nuts on the bottom, and here's the hardware for that goes on the bottom. You don't have to compress the spring to pull this out of the middle. It's one of the easiest parts to put in the car, and so this is gonna be real easy to do. And we're set, so let's get started. So like I was saying before, there's only 2 bolts. That goes on top of the shock tower here, and then down below there's just 2 nuts. There's one on either side of the spring perch. There's one right here, and then one on the back side. And thankfully, for this setup, all we have to do is we'll just jack up the control arm, and that will put a little compression on the spring and loosen up the shock, and we can just pull it right out of the top and put the new one in. So we'll start with these 1/2-inch bolts. And now we can go after these 1/2-inch nuts. The one in the back here is just a little hard to see, but once you get the socket on there, you'll be able to find it and go ahead and take it off. Before I finish taking this nut off, I'm going to put a jack underneath the control arm just to jack it up a little bit and take the tension off of that bolt on this shock. Now that's done on the bottom, we can go ahead and just pull this right out of the top. Okay, now we can go ahead and put the new one in. Be mindful that there's a rubber bushing that needs to go on here before you seat it down into the spring perch. You can do that now, but it might fall off, or you can just do it once you get it down inside there. So these are the 2 bushings that we need to put in, and notice that there's a little flange on the edge here that needs to sit down inside the spring perch so that it kind of locks in place. So when you put them on the shock, put that little lip on the bottom side. And then the same thing, we want to put the washers or the bushings on the other side with the little lips facing up again so that it seats inside the hole that's in the spring perch. Also, after you put the bushing, we need a flat washer. Then we need a lock washer, and then the nut will be the last thing that you put on for each one of these studs. All right, once you got that in place, you can go ahead and tighten it down, and that'll help hold this shock down in place, so it'll make it easier to do the back one. Again, same thing on the back. We want this bushing with the little tab to stick up, then a flat washer, then a lock washer, and then last the nut. All right, that side's done. And now that the bottom's done, we're gonna line the top up here before we put the bolts in, and I'm going to just kind of hold it in place and just kind of start the thread of the bolts in place. And once we get those started, then we're gonna slowly drop that jack, which will pull this down in place. There we go. And all I did is just took the pressure off of the lower control arm, and now the spring is separating everything and pulling this shock into place. Now we can go ahead and finish tightening these down. All right, now it's time to do the same thing on the other side. Again, same procedure, jack up the lower control arm, take the nuts off the bottom, then we can pull the shock out the top. Okay, just pull the shock out the top. And then we'll drop the new one in. All right, just like the last side, don't forget to put the bushings underneath before you put it into the spring perch. All right, now we just need to tighten them down and we'll be set. Just like the other side, we're just gonna pull this in place just to put the bolts in the spring perch, or the strut top. Now we can slowly go ahead and drop the control arm. There we go. Now that's in place, we can go ahead and tighten these up. All right, that takes care of that. Those shocks are in, super easy mod. It's probably been about an hour to do all this, and that includes setting up the camera, moving it around and getting the different camera angles and the lighting, all that kind of stuff. So you guys should be able to knock this out in half an hour tops. I mean, this is one of the easiest ones to do. And then just a little bit of patience is required on the back side of that shock. When you're putting that bushing and washer and stuff up inside there, I'd probably dropped it 6 times. I was gonna leave it in the video, but that'd have been probably a 5-minute boring part that nobody's gonna wanna watch. So anyways, all right. Guys, thanks for sticking with me on this one. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, and if you can, subscribe to help my channel. I'd appreciate it. All right, we'll see you in the next one.